We are now a long way from the days when banks existed to look after your pot of gold. There is no pile of money in your bank labelled with your name, only an entry in a database that says you should be given this amount of money when you ask for it. Let's imagine that every month you get a salary. I know, wild, right? That salary goes directly to your bank, and once there your bank can do whatever it likes with it, as long as it's available when you actually need to spend it. You have loaned the bank that money. For the duration of that loan, the bank is free to lend that money to somebody else should it wish to do so. While regulation is different depending on the country, a common requirement is that a bank should keep some fraction of what it lends in reserve and covered by actual assets. Though these assets could be something as nebulous as the right to borrow more money if required from the country's central bank. This reserve, known as a fractional reserve, is usually around 10% of the bank's assets. The rest it is free to lend. Let's imagine that you want to buy a car. I know, wow. You go to the bank and ask them to lend you £10,000 and they agree. The bank doesn't need anyone's permission to do this, and they do not take this money out of any stock they hold. They simply add it to your account's balance. While government tends to get the credit for printing money, 97% of all new money comes from private banks. So now you have £10,000 and the bank has an agreement from you to pay that money back with interest. You go and give that £10,000 to a guy in exchange for that car you were so keen on. Now the seller of that car takes the £10,000 and deposits it back into the bank. The bank has to keep back 10% of that money as reserve, but it is free to lend out £9,000, perhaps to a customer who wants a fractionally cheaper car. That £9,000 goes into another bank, which has to keep 900 of it, but lends out £8,100, and so on. By the end of this chain, nearly £100,000 worth of transactions will have completed using just the £10,000 your bank created out of thin air. The supply of money has increased. This seems like magic, but it is, in a simplified form, exactly what happens. Ideally, as the loans get repaid, the supply of money reduces again and returns to its starting state, assuming nobody defaults. In theory, we have a nice, stable system where money is created, circulates, and then vanishes. In theory. The main issue is that these loans don't get repaid 100%. They get repaid with interest, so more than 100%. This is money from outside the stable system and has to come from somewhere, so it's created by banks in the form of more loans, which themselves have interest attached. So what could be a stable system is in fact constantly expanding. Right now, 30 to 40% of all financial transactions are some form of interest. So the supply of money, instead of circulating endlessly, has to be continually increased to account for interest. In our example, not just the interest for the first £10,000 loan, but the interest for each relending of that money down the chain. Fortunately, we live in a world of infinite resources, where things can expand indefinitely forever, and nothing will ever go wrong. Oh, wait. Join us next time to discover that this might not be the only issue with our current system. Oops.